Close your eyes if you like. Let your ears carry you and drift. Let's arrive slowly, as if we've just stepped into a familiar room. The lamp keeps a small circle of light. The window keeps a few patient stars. We're here to settle. The blanket is close. The chair holds you gently. There is no clock ticking, no page demanding to be turned before you're ready. Just the quiet sound of a house at rest, and the two of us, side by side, in the low and golden light. This room has been here all along, waiting the way good rooms wait, without insistence, without hurry. You don't have to do anything with it tonight. Only be in it for a little while, and let the evening hold you exactly where you are. The lamp stays on. The stars stay patient. And we begin, slowly, together, at our own pace. Tonight's idea is simple enough to hold in one hand. Space itself can stretch. Not objects running through space, but the space between them quietly making room. We don't need the whole blueprint yet, just the gentle outline. Think of it this way. The distance between 2 points can grow without either point moving. The hallway gets longer without the walls rushing outward. The page gets wider without the edges pulling themselves apart. In this story, it's space itself that changes. The distance grows, even when nothing moves in the usual sense. Physicists gave this idea a name: inflation. A very brief period of rapid stretching, long before the first star was lit, long before anything we'd recognize as home existed. We don't need to hold every detail of that right now. Just the outline, just the shape of the idea, like a quiet bookmark you can slip between pages. Imagine standing still in a hallway, book in hand, feet not moving at all. Now imagine the hallway lengthening anyway, distance appearing where distance already was. That's the kind of motion we're talking about. The room changing, not the walker. You feel the floor beneath your feet. It's solid, steady, calm. The book's weight is familiar in your hand, and yet, without a single step, the far end of the hallway drifts gently away from you. Quietly, patiently, the way a house might grow in a dream, naturally, without effort, without anyone noticing until morning. The walls don't crack or strain. The light doesn't flicker. Only the distance between you and the far door, softly, slowly, becomes a little more than it was. That is the kind of stretching inflation describes. Only a gentle widening of the world, carried out by space itself. There's a book on the table, and one page holds a small crease. If that crease was slowly smoothed outward, it could become a faint texture across the whole page. Tonight we'll follow that quiet transformation, tiny becoming vast. Hold the book in your mind for a moment. Feel the weight of it. Old pages, a worn spine, the kind of book that has been loved. And on one page, there it is, a crease. Barely visible, really, a soft fold in the paper, the kind you'd only notice if you held it up to the lamplight. Now imagine that crease spreading, not disappearing, but stretching across the page, becoming a texture you can feel with your fingertip. Faint, but present in every corner. That is the shape of what we'll explore tonight. Something small, carried outward into something vast. A whisper becoming the character of the whole. We'll return to it. Let it rest, for now, exactly where it is. Inflation was proposed to soften 3 puzzles: an even warmth, a level geometry, and missing early clutter. Think, rooms sharing the same temperature, a floor that feels level, and shelves without certain heavy remnants. We'll only preview them now, like reading the chapter titles by lamplight. These aren't grand mysteries. They are quiet wonders, domestic almost, the kind you notice when you pay gentle attention to a house you've lived in for a long time. Why does every room feel the same warmth? Why does the floor seem so straight for so long? Why are certain shelves so empty when theory says they should be full? Each one has a gentle answer, and inflation offers a way to hold all 3 at once, like a single idea that tidies several rooms. We won't walk through them yet. Only notice them the way you'd notice chapter titles as you flip through a book before bed. Then we'll close the cover softly and begin. We'll walk through 6 rooms tonight, one at a time, with the book always in reach. First the puzzles, then the mechanism, then the evidence, and finally a return to the room. Nothing dramatic, just a careful page turning. The first room shows us the 3 puzzles: evenness, geometry, and housekeeping. Each one gentle, each one holding its own small wonder. The second room goes deeper, how space itself stretched, and what that stretching means for us, for the house, for the hallway we've been imagining. The third room lets us look at each puzzle more closely, with a little more care, a little more light. The fourth room is where the story becomes quietly beautiful, where tiny ripples become the foundations of everything. The fifth room holds what we know, what we don't, and the open doors we're still waiting to walk through. And the sixth room is this one, where we return, where the lamp stays on, where the book rests closed. No rush between them. We move as slowly as we like. This story will speak softly. It will keep its metaphors simple and put every big scale back into the room. If anything grows too large, we'll bring it back to the lamp. That's a promise we'll keep through every room we visit tonight. The universe is vast, incomprehensibly so at times. But we'll keep that vastness light enough to hold as wonder. When the numbers get large, we'll set them down gently. When the ideas stretch wide, we'll fold them back into something you can hold. And when the questions open up, the ones we can't answer, the ones science is still carefully turning over, we'll let them rest in the margins, like notes a thoughtful reader left in pencil, light enough to set aside. You and I are here, in this room, with the lamp and the book and the window full of patient stars. That's all we need. For now, let the crease rest exactly where it is. We can leave it there for now and begin, gently. The page doesn't need to be turned yet. The book can stay open to this one quiet spot, this small fold, this barely there texture for as long as you like. There's no timer here, no clock counting down the moments before the story moves forward. Only the lamp, keeping its steady light, and the two of us settling into the pace of the evening. When you're ready, when the room feels settled, we'll take the next step together. The crease stays where it is. The hallway stays quiet. And the first room of the story waits, with its door gently open, for whenever you'd like to walk through. We can leave it there for now. Stand with me in the hallway again, still, unhurried. The walls don't move, but the space between them begins to widen, almost politely. You haven't taken a step, and yet the far door feels a little farther away. If you like, notice the floor beneath your feet, unchanged, familiar. The wood's texture and the still air stay steady. And yet the distance itself has grown, gently. Inflation is that brief making room, space expanding, then growing quiet again. The house doesn't race, it simply becomes larger, as if the blueprint were unfolding. Afterward, the new rooms remain, calm, spacious, still. Imagine the blueprint spread across the table, and someone drawing in more hallway, more space where space already was. And then it stops, leaving the added distance resting there, like a page eased flat. When we look outward, we find a faint glow, spread almost evenly across the sky. Its temperature is nearly the same everywhere, as if every room shared one steady warmth. Without inflation, this would be a puzzle. Distant regions would have been separated before they had time to share their warmth. Inflation offers a quiet way through. Once, those regions were close, with doors effectively open, and warmth had time to settle. Then the hallway lengthened, carrying that evenness outward, like a memory written into light. Let's pause and feel the room again. Lamp, blanket, the stillness of the air. Big ideas can wait outside the door for a moment. We keep the book open, but we don't rush the page. There is a kindness in letting the thought settle, the way a house settles after a door has been opened, quietly finding its balance. We can stay here a moment and continue only when the room feels ready. Measurements suggest space appears remarkably level, like a long hallway floor. We don't claim perfection, only a strong tendency toward levelness within what we can measure. Inflation would make gentle curvature hard to notice, stretched so thin it fades from our instruments. So we keep the word remarkably, not perfectly, and let that careful modesty be part of the story. The floor feels level beneath the mind's footstep, and for tonight, that is enough. Some theories suggest rare heavy relics should have been made early on. Magnetic monopoles in certain high-energy pictures. If they were made, they should still be here, like stubborn objects left on the shelves. But we don't see them, or we see so few we've never confirmed one. Inflation offers a tidy possibility. The stretching thinned them out, spreading them across such an enormous house that finding one becomes extraordinarily unlikely. And we keep the boundary clear. The underlying theories are still being explored, so we hold this lightly. So, the even warmth, the level floor, the missing clutter, 3 puzzles held gently in the margins. They arrive together like 3 quiet questions that sit naturally side by side. We won't turn them into a chase tonight. We'll simply let them point together toward one patient gesture. A brief stretching of space itself early on, before the house was fully furnished with stars. We don't have to carry the puzzles any farther tonight. Let's return to the crease in the page and let the hallway go quiet again. The lamp keeps its circle of light, and the book stays open without asking anything of you. The puzzles can rest where you left them, steady as books on a shelf. And we can rest too, with the room calm around us. The horizon problem is the puzzle of the even glow. Distant regions look as if they share the same settled warmth. So we ask, how could that calm agreement have formed? It's a gentle question, the kind you ask while turning a page, not the kind that lingers restlessly. When we look at the cosmic microwave background, that faint ancient light, the oldest glow in the cosmos, we find it holds the same temperature everywhere we look. Every direction, every corner of the sky, the same quiet warmth, as consistent as the air in a room where the doors have been open for a long time. And the question is, how? How did such distant places that, without inflation, would have been too far apart to ever share their warmth, manage to settle into such calm agreement? It's a puzzle shaped like a question mark. Soft, curious, patient. We'll turn the page gently and see what inflation suggests. Without inflation, those regions would have been too far apart to share even the smallest exchange, like rooms separated before any air had time to mix. The puzzle is gentle, sameness across distance. Think of 2 rooms on opposite ends of a very long house. Rooms that have never had a door opened between them, never had their air allowed to mingle, never had any chance to reach the same temperature. Each room would have its own warmth, its own small climate. One might be cool, the other warm. There would be no reason for them to agree. And yet, when we look at the sky, those distant regions do agree. They share the same settled warmth, as if they had once been neighbours, once been close enough to share the same air. That's the puzzle inflation was partly built to answer, not with force or drama, but with a simple observation. Once they were close. Once, before the stretching, the rooms were near each other, and the warmth had time to spread. Inflation suggests they were once close enough to settle into one temperature. Then the hallway lengthened, carrying that evenness outward. A memory of closeness written into the warmth itself. Before the stretching, the universe was small, compact, the way a house feels when you first arrive at it, before you've walked all the hallways, before you know how many rooms it holds. In that compact space, everything was near. The air could mingle, the warmth could spread, the way warmth spreads in any small, still room, if you give it time. And then inflation began, and the space between those regions stretched, quietly, rapidly, carrying the evenness with it like a pattern pressed into the page. Not destroying the warmth, not disrupting the agreement, only carrying it outward, across distances that grew and grew, until the regions that once shared the same room were separated by the full width of the observable sky. The warmth remained the same, a memory of closeness carried in the light itself. The flatness problem is the puzzle of a level floor. Space appears remarkably level to our instruments, within measurement limits. We don't claim perfection, only a strong tendency toward levelness. Walk through the hallway in your mind again, and pay attention to the floor this time. It's level, steady beneath your feet. No curve upward, no dip downward, only a calm, straight surface, stretching as far as you can see in either direction. Now, the universe could have been curved, like the surface of a ball or a saddle, or any number of shapes that mathematics allows. Geometry is a quiet language with many possible sentences. But when we measure, when we use our best instruments to ask what shape space takes, we find it says something remarkably simple: level. We hold that word with care because no measurement is perfect, but remarkably, strikingly, in a way that inflation, with its stretching, can explain. The floor is level, and that is a puzzle worth sitting with. Imagine a hallway so long that gentle bends fade from view. Inflation would stretch space so much that small curvature becomes hard to notice. What remains is remarkably level, a careful, modest phrase. If the universe were curved, gently, subtly, you might never know. Not if the stretching had smoothed that curve across such a long hallway that no instrument could detect it. From where you stand, the floor simply looks level. Inflation does something similar to the geometry of space. It stretches any curvature so thin, so far, that what remains looks level to everything we have. And so we say, carefully, space appears remarkably level. That word, chosen with care, is honest enough to hold for tonight. The monopole problem is the puzzle of missing heavy leftovers. Some high-energy theories suggest they should exist. Inflation would thin them out. And here we mark the boundary. The underlying theories are still being explored. Certain theories, grand ones, ambitious ones, the kind that try to describe how the fundamental forces of nature were once united, suggest that in the very earliest moments of the universe, heavy particles called magnetic monopoles should have formed. Like stubborn pieces of cosmic clutter, stable and difficult to remove. If they were made, they should still be here. We should find them occasionally, scattered through the cosmos, like old objects left on forgotten shelves. But we don't. We've looked carefully, and they're absent, or so rare that we've never once detected one. Inflation's answer is simple and tidy. The stretching thinned them out, spread them so thin across the vastness that finding one would take longer than the age of the universe. A gentle housekeeping, but we hold it lightly, because the theories behind it are still being refined. Even glow, level floor, missing clutter. 3 reasons the idea was proposed. They're practical, almost domestic questions. Warmth, geometry, housekeeping. And now we turn back to the crease, the part that feels quietly beautiful. Inflation was born from these three observations, three things about the universe that were difficult to explain without it, each one pointing gently toward the same idea, space once stretched, and each one fitting the way pieces of a puzzle fit when you found the right arrangement. Not forced, not strained, but settling into place with a quiet click. Warmth shared across the sky, a floor that feels level, shelves cleared of certain ancient debris. Three domestic questions answered by one patient gesture. And now, having looked at each puzzle, having felt its shape, having understood why it matters, we can turn the page. Because the most beautiful part of the story is what the puzzles lead us toward. The crease in the page, the tiny whisper that became the texture of everything. We'll find it in the next room. Let it rest right here in the quiet. We'll return to the crease in the page when you're ready. For now, the room can stay warm. The three puzzles have been gently opened, each one turned in the lamplight, each one held without strain. Even glow, level floor, missing clutter. They sit on the shelf now, where ideas rest when they've been properly attended to. And the next room, the one with the crease, the one where tiny becomes vast, waits, with its door open, whenever you're ready to step through. But not yet if you're not ready. The room stays warm, the lamp stays on, the blanket holds its quiet weight. Let the ideas settle, the way they settle when they've been given enough space and enough time and enough gentle attention. Let it rest right here in the quiet. The book stays open, the page stays turned. Before inflation, space wasn't perfectly smooth. It held tiny variations. Think wood grain under lamplight, or a page whose texture you can feel with a fingertip. Small enough to seem like a whisper. This is where the story becomes quietly beautiful, where the smallest things in the cosmos begin to matter. In the earliest moments, before the stretching began, space was not perfectly still, not perfectly smooth. At the very smallest scales, scales so tiny they are difficult to imagine, there were variations, tiny differences in density, in energy, in the way the space between things was organized. Quantum mechanics, the science of the very small, tells us these variations were inevitable. They had to be there, the way texture has to be in wood, the way no page in any book is perfectly, uniformly smooth. Hold your hand close to the wood of the table, if there is one. Feel the grain, the subtle ridges, the quiet character. That is the scale we're talking about. Whisper small. And yet, those whispers had somewhere to go. When space stretches, those tiny variations stretch with it. Like a crease smoothed wider, still gentle, just spread. Scale changes, even if the whisper stays a whisper. Imagine the crease again, the one in the page of the book. It's there, barely visible. A soft fold you'd only notice in the right light. Now imagine the page itself growing, not the crease disappearing, but the page stretching outward, carrying the crease with it, spreading it across a wider and wider area. The crease doesn't become a different thing. it becomes a larger version of itself, still subtle, still gentle, but now present across the whole page, where before it was only in one small corner. That is what inflation did to those tiny quantum variations. It carried them outward, across distances they could never have reached on their own. Small became medium, medium became large, and eventually, patient, quiet, unhurried, those whispers became the foundations on which galaxies would one day grow. The whisper stayed a whisper, but the page grew vast. We can't open the earliest door to watch this happen directly, but we can look for what it leaves behind, traces carried into later rooms. Inference, not spectacle. There is a door in this house that stays closed, a door in the earliest room, the one from which everything else unfolds. We can't open it. We can't peer through and watch the tiny variations form, can't see them stretching, can't witness the moment when the whispers begin their long, patient journey toward becoming something vast. That door stays beyond the reach of our instruments, our telescopes, our best and most careful observations. But here is what we can do. We can look at what that room left behind when the door closed. We can examine the traces, the echoes, the faint marks that were carried outward into later rooms, into light, into patterns, into numbers we can measure. Inference, not spectacle. That is how we read this story, and it turns out to be enough. The CMB is a faint imprint, an early texture we can still read, like wallpaper that remembers how the walls were first set. Tiny variations spread across the sky, soft but real. The cosmic microwave background, the oldest light in the universe, the first light that ever traveled freely, carries a pattern, a texture, a kind of wallpaper, if you like, pressed into the walls of the cosmic home during its earliest moments. When we map this pattern, when we point our most sensitive instruments at the sky and listen carefully to the faintest differences in temperature, we find it warmer here, cooler there, by amounts so small they are almost impossible to detect. About 1 part in 100,000, almost nothing, almost exactly even, but not quite. And that not quite, that faint, barely there texture is a record, a memory written in light, carried across billions of years, waiting quietly on the walls for someone to notice it. We noticed it, and it told us something. We see that pattern from one place only, our view from a single window in the house. That limitation matters. It's part of the honesty of the measurement. One window can still show a great deal if we look gently. Physicists call this limitation cosmic variance, a gentle word for a simple truth. We only have one sky to look at, one universe, one set of observations gathered from one particular place in the cosmos at one particular time. We can't walk around to the other side and check. We can't compare our sky with another universe's sky. We have one window, and we look through it as carefully as we can. That doesn't diminish what we see. A single window, looked through with patience and precision, can show a great deal. The texture of the walls, the character of the light, the subtle patterns that tell a story of how the house was made. One window, one sky, one careful look. And it's enough to hold something true. There's a number called the spectral index, describing how ripples vary by scale. The measured value is about 0.965, nearly even, but not quite. Say it once, then let the meaning do the work. It's a number close to 1, a number that tells us something precise about how the texture of the cosmos is distributed across different scales, from the size of a galaxy to the width of the observable sky. The ripples, those tiny variations carried outward by inflation, are slightly stronger on larger scales than on smaller ones. Not dramatically, not in a way you'd notice at a glance, but enough to measure, enough to matter. Nearly even, but not quite. A nearly but not quite that carries weight, that points toward a specific kind of process, a specific kind of early history. We say the number once, and then we let it rest. We don't repeat it, we don't dwell on it, only hold it gently, like a small note tucked between pages, light but meaningful, staying right where it belongs. That nearly but not quite texture fits inflation well. Not proof, more like handwriting that matches a familiar hand. A small steadiness in the ink. When you recognize someone's handwriting, not because you've been told it's theirs, but because the way the letters fall, the way the ink settles on the page, the subtle lean and pressure of each stroke feels familiar. That's the kind of recognition we're talking about. We're talking about a quiet, confident sense that these patterns, these textures, this nearly but not quite evenness, arose from the kind of stretching inflation describes. The number fits, the texture matches, the signature, faint as it is, points in a direction we recognize. Scientists will keep looking, keep measuring, keep refining, keep holding the data up to better and better light. The handwriting may become clearer with time, but for tonight we can rest with this. A texture, a pattern, a small steadiness in the ink that feels quietly like something true. For now we can rest with that. A texture, a pattern, a gentle signature. We can leave it there for now, like closing the book and letting the lamp stay low. And we can pause for a moment. The breath continues on its own, slow, ordinary, enough. The page is still there under your hand, or under the lamplight, or simply in the quiet space of your mind where ideas rest when they've been properly held. The crease has spread. The whispers have become something larger. The texture is there, on the walls, in the light, in the faint warmth of the sky. And now we rest with it, not finishing, not resolving, only pausing, the way you pause between chapters, or between breaths, or between one thought and the next. The book stays open, the lamp stays low. We can leave it there for now, and when we're ready, gently, without hurry, we'll step into the next room where the story continues, quietly, a little further along. There's another possible signature we haven't seen yet. B modes would be like a watermark on the page, faint, delicate, easy to miss, a pattern you might only glimpse in the right light. Hold a page up to the lamplight, not just reading it, but looking through it, holding it at an angle, letting the light pass through the paper itself. Sometimes, in old books, you can see a watermark, a faint shape pressed into the paper during its making, visible only when the light falls just right. That is what B modes would be, if we could find them. A faint, swirling pattern in the polarization of the oldest light, a subtle twist that inflation, if it happened at a high enough energy, should have left behind. Not density ripples this time. Something different. Something shaped by gravitational waves. Ripples in the very geometry of space, stretching and squeezing the light in ways that leave a specific, delicate signature. A watermark in the cosmic page. We haven't found it yet, but we're looking carefully in the right light. So far, we haven't found that watermark. What we have are careful limits, an upper bound, not a headline. This page stays open, waiting for quieter measurements. The absence of a finding is something worth understanding. It's a space that remains open, waiting, patient, the way a page waits to be filled by someone with the right instrument, the right moment, the right quality of attention. What we have, for now, is a ceiling, an upper limit. Scientists have measured carefully and said, if B modes exist, they must be fainter than this. That boundary is useful. It narrows the space of possibilities. It tells us something, even in its quietness. The page stays open, not blank, not finished, but waiting. The way a good book waits for the reader to return, without judgment, without impatience. We'll come back to this page someday, with better instruments, better light, more patience. For now it rests, open and unhurried. After stretching ends, the story needs a warm bridge. Reheating is the idea that energy becomes particles and heat, the ingredients of everything later, like a hearth lit softly in a new house. Imagine the house after inflation, vast, spacious, calm. The rooms are stretched wide, the hallways are long, and everything is quiet. But it's spare, wide and quiet, and waiting to be filled with warmth. Something had to happen next. Something had to fill the rooms with warmth. And what physicists propose is this. The energy of inflation, the very force that drove the stretching, didn't simply vanish. It transformed. It became particles, heat, light, the building blocks of matter, the ingredients of stars and galaxies, and the warm glow we see when we look at the sky. Like lighting a hearth for the first time in a new house, filling the cold rooms with warmth, filling the empty space with life. That transition is what physicists call reheating. We know something like this must have happened. But the detailed recipe, how exactly, remains active, careful work. A note still being written in the margins. Without reheating, without some process that turned inflation's energy into matter and light, we wouldn't have stars. We wouldn't have galaxies or planets, or the faint glow of the cosmic microwave background, or any of the warmth we observe when we look at the sky. We wouldn't be here asking these questions in this quiet room. with this lamp and this book. So something like it must have occurred. The logic is clear, the necessity is gentle but firm. What remains uncertain is the detail, the specific recipe, the exact sequence of steps, the precise mechanism by which energy became matter. That is still being worked out, still being written in equations and simulations and careful theoretical work by scientists who are patient and methodical and doing their best to read a page that is only partially visible. A note in the margins still being filled in, one careful word at a time. There are multiple versions of inflation, with different mechanisms and predictions. The number we mentioned fits the general picture, but doesn't choose a single model. So we keep the options open, without forcing a conclusion. Think of a story told in many editions. The same essential tale, but with different illustrations, different annotations in the margins, different small emphases that change the feeling without changing the core. That is what inflation looks like from the inside. Many possible versions, each with its own mechanism, its own way of explaining how and why the stretching began and how it ended. For now, we keep those additions side by side and let future measurements do the choosing. For now, we keep those additions side by side and let future measurements do the choosing. The spectral index we mentioned, that nearly but not quite evenness, fits the general shape of the story, but it doesn't point to one particular addition over another. So we hold the options open, the way a reader might hold several books side by side, comparing them gently, without rushing to choose. The right addition may reveal itself in time, with more data, more light. If we open a small frontier window, it should stay quiet. We can say, some signatures remain unmeasured, some details remain under study, and then we close the window gently back to the room. There is a window in this house that looks out onto the edge of what we know, a place where the light gets thinner, where the certainties soften into possibilities, where the questions are still being carefully formed. If you open it, just a crack, just enough to feel the air, you find this. B modes are still being searched for. Reheating is still being understood. The exact nature of the inflaton, the field that may have driven inflation, is still unknown. Multiple models compete, gently, each offering its own version of the story. These are the shape of the frontier, the place where science is still working, still listening, still holding the questions with care. And now we close the window, softly, and turn back to the room. The lamp is still on. The warmth is still here. So we have a picture that explains much, and still leaves a few doors closed. That's not a failure. It's the shape of careful knowledge. We can let the open questions rest without chasing them. A picture that works well, that fits the data, that answers 3 puzzles, that leaves a faint and beautiful signature in the sky, is already something remarkable. It doesn't need to be complete to be valuable. It doesn't need every door opened, every question answered, every detail filled in. A book with a few chapters still unwritten is still a good book, still worth reading, still worth holding, still worth sitting with in the lamplight on a quiet evening. That is what inflation offers us tonight. A story that explains much, that fits what we observe and that leaves room for more to be discovered. The open questions are there, gently, patiently, in the margins. They don't demand answers tonight. We can let them rest. We can let them be, quietly, part of the story without needing to finish it. We don't have to solve the open questions tonight. Let's return gently to the room and let the page lie open without asking anything. The frontier window is closed now, softly. The questions are where they belong, in the margins, in the pages still being written, in the quiet space between what we know and what we will know someday. And we are here, in this room, with the lamp and the book and the warmth. Your breathing can stay as it is. Let the ideas settle quietly, the way a room settles after the light has been lowered. The page lies open, not demanding to be read, not insisting on attention, only resting there, the way a good book rests when it's been set down with care. We don't have to carry it any farther tonight. Let's return gently to the room and let the page lie open without asking anything. Inflation helps with the even warmth, the level geometry, and the missing clutter. It offers a way for tiny variations to become the foundations of structure. And it leaves a faint texture in the sky, plus one small steady number. Let's gather what it's given us, the way you'd gather small warm objects from a shelf before leaving a room for the night, holding them gently, noticing their weight, appreciating what they are, even warmth across the sky, a way to understand why the oldest light shares the same temperature in every direction, a level geometry, a way to understand why space appears remarkably flat, remarkably calm, remarkably straight, missing clutter, a way to understand why certain particles that should be here are nowhere to be found, tiny becoming vast, a way to understand how the smallest quantum whispers became the foundations on which galaxies grew, and a faint texture, a gentle number, a signature in the sky, all of it consistent, all of it quietly pointing in one direction. These are the gifts of the idea. Some details remain open, the exact field, the energy scale, the mechanism's specific form. B modes remain unobserved, though carefully bounded. Reheating is necessary, yet still being refined. These are the open doors, the ones we noticed along the way, the ones we marked with a gentle pencil note and moved past, trusting they would wait. The exact nature of the inflaton, the field that may have driven the stretching, is still unknown. The energy scale at which inflation occurred is still being narrowed. The specific mechanism, the precise way it began and ended, is still being worked out. B modes, those swirling watermarks that would tell us more, remain undetected. We have boundaries, careful limits, but the signature itself is still being searched for. And reheating, the warm bridge from cold expansion to a living universe, is necessary, clearly so, but its details are still being written. These open doors are invitations, quiet, patient ones, for future readers of this story, future scientists, future nights like this one. They'll be here when we return. Some ideas suggest inflation may continue elsewhere, as if there are distant rooms we won't enter tonight, beautiful to imagine and still beyond what we can test from here. Other models tell a quieter story of cycles, like a house renewed over long ages, possible, debated, and still weighed against the texture we see in the sky. The CMB can feel like a quiet library shelf, a record that waits without asking, a soft memory you can return to later, when you want to. Tonight it can simply be there. There is a room in this house that holds books, not grand ones, not imposing ones, but quiet ones, the kind with worn spines and pages that have been turned many times by hands that were patient and curious and kind. The cosmic microwave background is like one of those books. It holds a memory, the memory of the universe's earliest light, its first free moment, its first breath after the stretching ended. And it waits. It doesn't insist on being read tonight, or tomorrow, or in any particular order. It's simply there, on the shelf, in the quiet room, holding its memory with the same gentle patience it has always held it, across billions of years, across the whole width of the sky. We can return to it whenever we like. It will be there. Tonight, it can simply be there, and that is enough. We can leave it there for now. The lamp is still here, and we're home. The window still holds its patient stars. We've walked through many rooms tonight, the hallways and the quiet spaces, the shelves and the open doors, the pages and the creases and the faint textures that tell the story of how the universe began to take its shape. We've held the ideas gently. We've set them down when they needed setting down. We've returned to the lamp again and again, the way you return to a warm room after stepping outside. Not because the outside was anything to fear, but because the warmth was always there, waiting. And now we can settle. The lamp is still here. The blanket is still warm. The window still holds its patient stars, steady, unhurried, crossing the night sky at their own quiet pace. We're home. The ideas are where they belong, on the shelf, in the margins, in the pages, gently held. We can leave it there for now. We can close the book softly. We can let the light dim, and your breath can keep its own slow pace. There's no rush to finish. The book closes the way a good book always closes, not with a sharp sound, but with the quiet settling of one page against another, the gentle pressure of a hand releasing what it has been holding with care. And the light, the lamplight that has been keeping its steady circle all evening, dims slowly, the way light dims when the evening deepens, when the night draws in, when the world outside the window grows quieter and the world inside grows softer. The breath can stay easy, in its own rhythm, the way it's always been. The room is here. The warmth is here. The ideas are resting where you left them, on the shelf, in the margins, in the quiet space between one thought and the next. And you are here too, held and warm and still. It can stay easy.